Now I'm going to take you to the bookstore area of Scholar. As you can see, we have a number of apps here: Community, Creator, Publisher, Dashboard, Bookstore. Bookstore is the point where we actually put in pedagogical content. So the other spaces are essentially open working spaces, but Bookstore is a space where we have a number of objects here that we call learning modules, each of which is interestingly quite different from a conventional textbook or a conventional learning resource. The learning modules that I'm showing you here are ones that we've created for different purposes, a lot of them for the Gates Foundation project that we've got. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to scroll down the page here to one particular learning module, which is this one called New Learning. We've been mostly looking at higher ed examples to show you the ways in which a learning module works. So here we are now in the New Learning learning module, and you can see here that we have two sides of the page. After the little introduction, the abstract, we have two sides of the screen. And one side of that screen is labelled for the participant or for the learner, depending on what terminology you want to use. But the other side is called for the instructor or for the teacher, again, depending on the terminology that you want to use. And what we've done on the left-hand side, we've written a kind of a script or some information which will go to the students to be read by the students, and a video here in this case, and some information and some text. And it ends with a request to comment. Now, what we have on the right-hand side here then is in the for the instructor space, we have some activity types which are activated. So here we've got the rubric for a piece of writing, and what I can do here is I can do one of several things. I can post the left side content to a community. So when I select that button, it tells me all the communities I'm currently involved with, and I can choose which community that gets sent to. And when that happens, that goes into the activity stream, and all the members of that community get the text on the left-hand side, the video on the left-hand side, whatever material there is there, they get posted into their community. What the other thing we can do is we can start a project in Scholar. So here, the Start a Project button actually sends a message out to everybody to begin a project which has a particular prompt to it, and has this rubric that I've pasted in there above. Or what we can do is we can also have a survey. I can either preview that survey or distribute that survey after I've previewed it to all the members of my community. So these are three different types of activity cycles which can be started here in a learning module. So when I go further down, I actually have a number of topics I want to bring up about different meanings of learning: architectonic meanings, discursive meanings. This is what I do with my master's students, but it could equally be something that I'm doing with children about animals in a grade 4 class, for example. And what I have here is small chunks of content. I'm going to take you to one chunk of content down here, which is I've got a section about pedagogical meanings, and when I post that left side content to community, let me show you what happens. So here I am now in my my class, my EPS 431 New Learning class, and this is an update that's come through now. In fact, this update I've posted from the learning module. In fact, what I can do is, before people comment on it, I can edit that, I can change it. I don't have to literally take the script that's been given to me in the learning module. But here you'll notice one of the features of this post, which I've made quite clear, is there are a number of links here to real sources, real people, stuff on the web, and in a sense, what this is meant to be is a discussion starter. So comment: how does the architecture, how is it that educational innovations can express the full range of pedagogical modes? That's a question that I'm asking to my my class. So what I've done here is there are two quite fundamental and interesting shifts going on from the conventional textbook. The first is we don't need to summarise the world in these posts, because there's the world out there. There are real sources, real thinkers, real texts. We just scaffold or curate that material that's available out there in the web. We put links in there. We might put a video in there, as I did in the first post. Me wanting to say something to the group via a video, a short video. So the first thing is, I mean, what a conventional textbook did is that it tried to summarise the world. We don't need to summarise the world because the world's at our fingertips through the web. What we need to do is curate the content of the world in this kind of a space to begin classroom dialogues. And then when we begin the classroom dialogue, if you look down here, the students in my class, they've put a whole lot of comments in, right, which is a bit like a classroom discussion. But what I'm really interested in highlighting is what's different about this from a classroom discussion. And here's, see one student talking to another student about a particular comment. Here's a student putting in a link to something that they want to refer to, and so on. And if I wanted to add something to that discussion, I just add a comment in the bottom. Now, let me say there are two things about this which are quite different from a conventional classroom discussion. Firstly, it can be synchronous and it can be asynchronous, and there is no difference, right? And when that actually happens, everyone responds all at once. So it has the intensity of a kind of a Twitter feed or a Facebook feed. And you know, in a conventional classroom, one student puts up their hand at a time, one person speaks, one person answers, and hopefully answers on behalf of the rest of the class, and everyone hears it. Well, here, actually everybody is responding to the question in their own way and dialoguing with each other. So there's quite a strong expectation that everybody participates, and a much more greater openness to participation. You know, in a conventional classroom, it's the person who's the most confident, who speaks first, who puts up their hand, is keen to speak, and it's harder for other people to become involved. But the second very interesting thing about this dialogue is you see these things are carefully thought through, premeditated written responses. So the anxiety you've got about speaking is often anxiety about not quite saying it well enough, not thinking about it, not having the time to think it through clearly. Now, even if you're actually in the class writing these replies, so this can be done in the class, or it can be done synchronously, or it can be done asynchronously out of the class. When I go there to start typing my comment in the bottom here, like so, when I go to start typing and I can go back and look over that sentence. It can be a bit more considered than an oral statement can ever be made. And also, very interestingly, it's made in an interim space between the grammar of writing and the grammar of speaking. It's a bit like speaking, but actually it's writing in some very, very interesting ways. So one of the interesting aspects of language is that when you speak orally, there are no sentences. It's just a string of clauses that go on, and there are all sorts of corrective mechanisms. This actually is an intermediate space between speaking and academic literacy, which is stuff that's more formally framed in more formal language. So you can see here that the comments that people are making are really, it's like speaking, but it's in this intermediate space between speaking and writing, in the transition between the world of oral, vernacular, informal discourse and academic language, which is more formal and more carefully thought through and more premeditated.